Thanks for coming out today. I appreciate it. Past week's been a fun week. We got back from Cancun and found out, probably within a couple hours after we arrived at our house that our dad had passed, but we saw him on Thursday before we left. And, I didn't get a chance to see, my dad, as we know him, for the last 15 years because he's, suffered from a sickness that took his life and just slowly went away. So it was really hard to see him like that. But I'm sure most of you heard in the past that, it takes a village to raise a family, and there's, quite a few people in here that have been a part of Troy and I's lives, as well as Rosie and Justin's, and helping and raising us. I can go through each one of you over and over again, and the impact you guys had on our lives and raising us. Troy and I are a product of that environment, but I'll tell you a lot of the product we're about is our father. I truly will miss him, and I hear all the time from people in our family, just other people, like, man, for the way you guys were raised and where you were brought up, I can't believe how you guys have turned out. And I just wanted to go through a few stories with you here, if I can make it through, that initialized the core value that we sort of had in our lives that a lot of you didn't know. As you know, I was driven by playing basketball growing up. It was probably all I liked to do and enjoy doing. And I got that from my dad. And when I was a junior at Lafayette, Jeff was the first time I got a call saying I'm going to be moved up to the varsity and play in the varsity game. And I've been sort of my dreams since I've been little to play there. And at the time, my dad had he didn't have a lot of money, and to get into a game was like $3 or $4, and he didn't have the extra money to get into the game. And I remember him searching through the couch cushions to get a couple quarters to be able to go. And I'll always remember that. The money never defined who we were as people. And to be able to come and see, my first opportunity to play will always be something that's near and dear to my heart. And Philippians 4:19 says, "And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus." We've always were taken care of, Troy? About my sophomore year in high school, my dad and I started, like most teenage boys do with their dads, to start riffing a little bit, and didn't necessarily agree on everything. And we just, we had a falling out for the next couple of years. And I had moved down here to Crawfordsville live with Ed and Joanne. And they sort of introduced me to the church. They set the foundation. I was probably the hardest kid to ever, be a part of, but, I appreciate the foundation you guys established for me. But before I left for the military, I was living in Lafayette. I had a week before I left, and I really hadn't spoken to my dad, but maybe once or twice. And he wrote me a letter that we're in the process of building a home and moving, and I can't find it in this Bible that I have, but I kept that letter with me near and dear to my heart. One of the things it talked about was forgiveness in there, and I won't go into details of it because I probably couldn't make it through. But he gave that to me the day I left for basic training, and we learned to forgive through our dad. He really did. He was a very quiet, simple man that never truly hated anybody. And one of the things Matthew 18:35, Jesus tells us, this is how our Heavenly Father will treat you, each of you, unless you forgive your brother or your sister from your heart. And I see a lot of hatred in the world today, and I see frustrations and people looking at each other, even in our own family here, and want to ridicule. And that's one thing I just remember my dad. He just wasn't that guy. He didn't really talk bad about anybody. And I've always appreciated about him. The hardest thing is this. I was in the 7th grade. It was the year that Ivy won the national championship. T-Smart hit that 3. I had to go up in my room, and I don't even know if I knew God at the time, but I was praying for something. And T-Smart hit that jumper. I didn't want to be around Troy or anybody at that time. I was watching this, and a couple days later, it was a couple weeks before that was my birthday, and this is the jersey my dad bought me. And at the time, like I told you about money, these were $50 to buy something like this. And I wore it to school proud after they won the national championship game, and someone stole it out of my locker. And knowing that we didn't have an extra $50, I came home at night and I had a brand new one on my bed. And that might not say a lot to you guys, but to me it was, how did he get that money? You know, how did he come up with that money? And come to find out, he set a couple heating and air conditioning jobs aside and made that extra $50 so he could go out and get me that. And when I think about how frustrated I was at losing that, and I was upset, you know, the empathy that my dad showed was pretty impressive to me. And I learned a lot from my dad in that avenue. I feel one theologian, 5:11, says, "Therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you were doing." You know, I mean, like I said, we live in a world that tears people down. I just didn't hear my dad tear a lot of people down. He never really did. He didn't talk about his divorces he went through. He just wasn't that guy. I know it hurt him. I know it crushed him. Troy and I saw it firsthand. Saw for about 6 years how crushed he was. He was a hard worker. I mean, he was up 6, 7 in the morning to go do heating and air conditioning job. And I never knew what he did until one day, it was in the summer. I was playing summer basketball for Lafayette Jeff, and I was frustrated because there's better players on the team than I was. And I came home and I was complaining about him. And all I had to do, he never made me have a job. Troy's one that worked all the time. I could do whatever I wanted. I could go play basketball, hang out with my friends, whatever. And he got mad at me, and he says, "Why don't you come work with me tomorrow?" I'm like, "Why?" He goes, I want you to see what I have to do each day." So we were outside this huge plant in Lafayette, and he had to fix a heating and air conditioning unit. I was like, okay. So I went and did this with him for a day, and we were underneath the heating and air conditioning unit, and it was hot. I was sweating. And he does this every single day, and he never complains. He just comes home and keeps doing the same thing over and over again. At the time, I didn't realize that. But now, as a 44-year-old with 4 children myself, I see how much, you know, how humbling that was to me to realize that the power that my dad had in me. Do everything without grumbling and arguing. This is what Philippians 2:14-15 says. Do everything without grumbling and arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God without fault in a warped, crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky. I always thought that of my dad. I just never thought he was the type of guy that grumbled and argued. So, you know, and I tell this to my kids because my kids, they're at that age now when I started separating a little bit from my dad. And I lipped off to him a few times growing up. But the time I remember the most, we were coming back from a family event, and I remember one time being hit by my dad. And he backhanded me, I deserved it. But he hit his hand off the ashtray, and his hand was swollen and broken and stuff. And I just remember he sort of laughed about doing that, because he's like, "Why did I do that?" But the thing I'll say this much is Exodus 10:20-12 says, "Honor your father and mother so you may live long in the land of the Lord that God has given you." And this is my best way of honoring my dad today, because, you know, no one wanted to, you know, Troy and I got together and we said we want to do something for him because, you know, it wasn't going to be done. So I'm so glad you guys showed up and stuff. So with my wife doing a devotion this week, she brought the story to me, and I thought, wow, Steph's dad was a funeral director, and he said the funerals are not necessarily for the dead, but they're for the living, they're for us. And that was sort of what she was impounded growing up, and being a part of her family for 22 years now. I've been to a lot of funerals and so forth, and I just want to read this story to you before I end. God is not in the business of replacing damaged people. God is in the business of fixing damaged people. He does not want to get rid of us. He wants to change us. He wants to tell us. He wants to transform us. He wants to live out the message of the cross. A story is told about a man parked on the side of a road. His car had broken down, and he had the hood up, trying to figure out the problem. A limousine pulled up behind him, and a man got out, dressed from head to toe like $1 million. He walked over to the driver of the broken down car and asked him, "Do you need help?" The man, of course, said yes. The man from the limousine tinkered around with the engine a bit. To the other man's surprise, the car started right up. The car's owner was beyond grateful, and he asked how much he owed him. While there are many variations to this story, the one that I heard was included in this response: "Nothing. I'm Henry Ford. I'm the creator of this car. It really bothers me to see one broken down on the side of the road, not doing what I created it to do. God doesn't just ride in His majesty and pass us along the side of the road when we have been broken. He wants to stop everything He's doing and come to our rescue. The Creator longs to redeem His creation. It bothers God to see you not living the life He created you to live. He gets great joy when He sees you overcoming, when He sees you moving forward, when He sees your faith growing. Do not give up on God because He never gave up on you. Trust Him today. Love Him like you've never been hurt. Whatever you're going through, whatever has happened, whatever loss or pain you feel in your heart, God will not let you fall. He will not let you stumble. He will not let you wobble. He will walk you out of the desert standing tall. Because guess what? We are not promised tomorrow. So how are you living today?